Afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? It's 1:00. I don't know what time it is ever. How are you? So, anyway, I'm going to do some screen scribbling today. But I want to talk about, I know that this might seem like it's a bit out of date, right? Because you know what the news cycle is. You know what the news cycle's like. Remember a few weeks back when I was taking a break and everyone was talking about the Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey? That's a thing. I'll show you a picture of I don't know who missed it because I shared it and it was funny. And, this culture war's bullshit. If you haven't seen it, then, anyway. But there was a viral image of something, and it's just really gotten me thinking a lot about, it's not about the butt monkey. Okay. Sorry, a few moving parts here. Hang on, let me just adjust my desk. There we go. A few moving parts. Because on one hand, what I find really fascinating about a lot of this culture war stuff is that it's never ending. It's cyclical, and it can be easily, a lot of this stuff, I think my frustration, how yesterday I was like, stop being stupid, right? With things like opposing quarantine, okay, for example. But it's policy that's existed for communicable diseases, they'll say that word, like in Australia forever. It's quarantine. It's like a normal policy to have people in a situation where, if you haven't been vaccinated or have a communicable disease, or you're coming from Africa and haven't been vaccinated and all those sorts of things, it's been policy since the fucking year dot, okay? Now, I'm not saying that just because something's always been a certain way that that's necessarily correct, but I think that it's funny because there's so much that is new that is old. And the culture wars represent a lot of that ongoing, constant, like I've talked about this before, this, like with free speech versus censorship, comedy, whether it should be free, getting arrested for comedy, shit you can't say, one side saying, they're kind of fucking trying to get us, and the other side going, oh no, think of the children, right? This is an ongoing, constant fucking thing. There's nothing new, right? I've talked about William Shakespeare before. Have I? Did I talk about that? Or did I just mention it in a tweet? Did you know that when William Shakespeare, first published his stuff, it was considered obscene and it was heavily censored? Even in America today. I don't know whether it's I think it's a lot easier to get it, but up until very, very recently in America, Romeo and Juliet was fucking censored for the naughty bits, okay? Because the fucking children, won't somebody think of the children? I'm a child protection worker and I think you should all calm the, well, I wasn't, okay, no. I was a child protection worker as a graduate, and I think you should all calm the fuck down. I was also a victim of abuse as a child. I think you should calm the fuck down. I lived next door to a pedophile who turned out that, who then transitioned in order to get out of prison. I still think you need to calm the fuck down. What's old is new and what's new is old. In many cases, what we're seeing with the internet in particular, right, is that we're just trying to figure out what has happened at the local, basically what's happened at a local level, right, throughout history. How do we live together? Fuck! That guy fucking hates the pedo. Okay, how do we deal with the pedo? That housewife is concerned about her children when she's upset. That guy's fucking offended at everything and thinks that fucking using Mrs. fucking Lovejoy's kid as a fucking weapon because he doesn't like that guy because he wants to steal everyone's shit. Okay? It comes down to humanity and human nature, and we're doing it, we've done it at a local level, okay? We did it at a fucking, a town level, a neighborhood level, state level, national level, international level, and now, right, we all get to interact online on this big global fucking platform with the same archetypes of people, the same struggles, the same conversations that have been around since the fucking beginning of time. and also had a heavy fucking, for some reason they all involve punishing women for all of it, but whatever. Okay. What's so what? Think of the children. The children are broken. Children are they're broken in a way that you won't face, but they're mostly fucking fine. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about the Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey. As the internet, aptly named the controversy. But then I'll dig into a little bit of, again, because, like when you work in tech, I bet they all overlap. User experience, marketing, digital strategy, all of those things. There's marketing theory, okay? Now, one of the courses that I used to run very early on was around how to utilize that sort of outrage in order to fucking, succès de scandale. I can't fucking speak French, but the concept is success from scandal, as perfected by people like Oscar Wilde, fucking, all those people. Another version might be something like the Streisand effect, or, other kinds of or Comstocking, right? Something where you inadvertently, with your aggressive anti-something stance, end up with the inverse fucking thing, which is that people end up supporting it, or it ends up being successful. So you, by fighting it, you end up helping it to succeed. Okay, that's the overarching fucking idea here. Also, I'll talk a little bit. I'm not going to go into fucking subversion theory or gender and shit like that, right? Some queer theory is actually very interesting in terms of cultural studies. Okay, some of this stuff is incredibly fucking interesting because when you are presented. Now, one of the things that I want to try and do more with this channel is, first of all, understand that, I really do want to talk more about the political and the digital and how they intersect with each other and psychological, because I'm uniquely positioned to see things, right, in a certain way. But also, right, I'm not going to try and do too much theory, but I'd like to get you curious so that you're thinking a bit more like clearly. But really, we're in the middle of a fucking, like I sat there and you sit there and you think about Twitter and everyone's like, there's this shit. Fuck this platform. It's terrible. Facebook. Fuck this platform. It's terrible. It's terrible because I can't get my own way. Okay. Oh, this platform is shithouse because I can't say whatever the fuck I want to say and I want to stop that guy saying what he wants to say. But you could have a negative view of that. But you know what? I tend to have more of an optimistic view of humanity. I believe when you sit there and you go, you know what? Some dude said with Twitter. We didn't say it up front because it was really just tech that got out. He did. Engineers, one thing you got to know about engineers is that they generally just do cool shit. Okay? And then see what happens, and then it grew from there. So a lot of Zuckerberg, a lot of Facebook and Twitter, right, they weren't. This is what the difference in thinking for people, where they attach conspiracy or hindsight. There's like a hindsight bias where, do you really think that like Jack from Twitter sat down and went, I'm going to create this thing? They didn't. They created this fun thing where they could group text their friends. Because remember, when Twitter was first out, it was you could integrate it with SMS, okay? You could send an SMS and it would broadcast, and then people could log onto a website and see that broadcast publicly, okay? That was the initial, it was just a proof of fun, cool SMS thing for Twitter. I've talked about this before because I've had a few people get on early because that was the value proposition that I sold them on early on, which was this is a way to communicate meaningfully and quickly and in a mobile way, before you had apps. Like this was pre-iPhone stuff, right? Before you had an actual app, you would, use a BlackBerry if you were super rich and fancy, but most people just were using WAP, right? WAP, which was that old, this is the stuff people don't remember. I think people forget history and where we've come. But also he built this platform and he's like, well, this is cool. And then it grew from there. Okay. And then user-generated functionality like hashtag replies. So the @reply function, right? You wouldn't even think that that's so pervasive now. Okay, it's almost like every other platform uses the @ symbol as a trigger, right? For replies. But that was, again, there's a computer science history there, but whatever. But that introduction was something that was largely generated by the community. It was user-led design and user-led stuff. And unfortunately, the users, once they grow at a certain pace, I know I'm talking about Twitter and I'll get to the other point, but it's all related. But, Twitter go, okay, do you know what I think? I think everything has gone, if you understand history, if you understand human behavior, if you understand how people interact in terms of, like, again, technology, okay, so you've got that distancing and that depersonalization that comes from, like, just being behind a screen, okay, that most people have, okay. You've got anonymity, you've got geopolitics, you've got speed and scale, okay. You have the fact that there's billions of people on one platform, like, that's amazing and impressive. It's an incredible human accomplishment, okay. Now, because there's humans involved, there's going to be fucking problems. But some of these problems have existed since fucking the beginning of time. Okay? Since America fucking started, it's gone on high speed. The Puritan shit, okay? Again, it's not started in England and, ancient days, okay? They're always the fucking church versus state fucking bullshit and people, having different degrees of what is appropriate in and outside of the community. That's if there was anything that would be about politics and society that everyone has common ground on, it's that we're all trying to figure out a way to coexist. Okay? Now, but, it's going well considering. Think about Facebook. People all of the world. The fact that I get to talk to you across the world. Like, this is why I fell in love with tech and why I evangelize it so much initially. Before it, there's still some problems to sort out, but I just don't want to be part of that. But initially, the thing that sold me on this thing called the internet back in the 90s was that I could have friends in a box anywhere in the world. Wasn't who I was, and I could travel from my lounge room. Like, how incredible! Imagine the pandemic 100 years ago. How isolating that would have been. Versus now, and it's like, can we put a slightly more optimistic view? Yes, there's political issues. Yes, there's tribal issues. Yes, everyone's fucking gone and had their brains atrophy into, like, some combination of fucking sugar and liquid shit. Okay, but like, when you have a historical view of these things, it's a fucking marvel. It's a miracle that this has gone as well as it has. Okay. Because America's going to Americate, corporations going to corporate, okay? Engineers are going to be engineers, okay? And fucking conservative Christian Helen Lovejoy fucks are going to be conservative Christian Helen Lovejoy fucks. Those characters, those archetypes, they resonate because they're a stereotype, because they exist. Now, won't somebody think of the children? Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey. And again, I want people to start thinking about, like, let's maybe zoom out and think about, have the bigger view, and maybe even understand why you might when people say, oh, that's a right-wing view. Well, I'm not offended by it. I'm interested, first of all, because there's nothing wrong with being right-wing. It's like when people say, like, autist, it's like, no, it's not. It's a compliment. It's only a problem if you think that being autistic is a bad thing. I don't think it is. I think it's a fucking superpower in many cases, not in others. Not when it comes to building tech products that have humans on them. Right? And again, I'm not saying that, autistic people can't relate to that, but I'm saying it's, but working together, the miracle and diversity and magic of people. It's like, why are you so fixated on the use of a single word? What side of history, and when I say history, I'm not using the same, that rhetoric. I'm using it in the way that it was initially intended, which is, when you look at through the lens of history and the big world view, okay? When you look at history and what has happened throughout history, which is complex and matrix and alliances and all that stuff. I've talked about prohibition with feminists and conservatives before, okay? There's especially in America, there's a a long-held tradition of radical feminism aligning with the Christian right. They have the same goals, okay? No allies, only interests, remember, okay? No conspiracies, only fucking people. Only behaviour and interests, okay? And this is the difference between people who go into conspiracy theories and Nutter Town and actually look at like analysis and systems. You know, the school of life people think it's a conspiracy. People who've gone to school can see this. Anyway, so Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey keeps coming back to that. I'll show you. If you didn't see it, then yeah. Hang on, let's hope that which side am I? There we go. So now everyone was mad. Okay. Now this one made me laugh. And the reason why I'm going to bring it up, because they're not unrelated, is also this. Okay. Now, everyone got mad and offended. Okay. Now, when you look at it through history, I didn't think it was that bad. I've talked about this before. You know those people that are like offended by, okay, I think it's very important for people to be honest with themselves about why they're upset about something. Why is everyone upset about this? Don't use the children, okay? Because in all honesty, when you look at the studies, okay, when you look at actual evidence and research, okay, there's a couple of papers, but really the research is pretty thin on the impact of like sexualized content on children, okay? Same as violence, all that stuff. Feels true. You think it might be true, but you're looking at it through your own value lens, okay, and your own set of values, okay? You're looking at it through the lens of somebody who wants to control who wants to contribute, whether you agree or not, okay? Whether you agree with this or not, and whether you even consciously do it or not, okay? You're feeding the beast. And you're also feeding an outrage that by and large has been on the conservative side of history and the reactionary side of history. Okay. Now, again, I think it's funny. And I'll tell you a little bit. I'll digress a little bit. I've talked about this a little bit before. I think I talked about this one in the in the Cadbury cream egg fiasco. Remember that one? It's one every fucking. This is fucking outrageous. There's men kissing. And a chocolate egg, and they're kissing. Won't somebody think of the children? Okay. I do. And you know what I think? I think having an open, honest, critical conversation, because the one thing that actually does show up throughout all of the evidence around media and harm and psychological harm and social harm and all of those things, the one thing is empirically true, okay, is that, first of all, children are smarter than fucking these fuckheads give them credit for, right? And second of all, first of all, what was the fucking sentence before that? Bloody hell, Taya. Oh, yeah, the thing that's true is that as long as it is age appropriate, okay, in this art, you could actually, again, I know that they apologized and stuff, but I'm saying, again, I'm taking a contrary view and we're thinking things through. We're not just reacting with our fucking lizard brains, but we're actually going, okay, let's unpick it. Why am I upset about this? This is fucking, I can't say that I'm giving therapy, but I'm saying it's a form of, this is what you do in a therapy session, or you would do. You dissect your thoughts, dissect your reactions, and see where it comes from, okay? Why do I believe this? Why am I offended by this? Okay? Now, again, I'm not gaslighting anybody. I'm just thinking things through. I love the fuckwit yesterday who posted who said I was advocating for dog abuse. Yes, because that's exactly what was my point yesterday, wasn't it? Fucking hell. But why am I offended by this? Why am I upset by this? Okay. Now, the history of public decency. Now, what we've got to do is talk about the reason why it's so important to be aware of this is because this is actually something that's never going to be settled, really. Talked about this with politeness before with a previous video, but it's also the same in terms of obscenity, okay? So there's laws, obscenity laws, and there's always going to be those people who think everything's fucking obscene. There's people who think that me not covering my fucking face and head, well, it is pretty obscene, look at it. But, you know, the fact that I wear like jeans, they find that obscene. You can't, you know, like, but you need to have some degree of public standards and obscenity because this is where it's fluid and there's a long history here and a lot of this reactionary fucking think of the children stuff up until recently, okay? And this is the thing I'm thinking about radical feminism is that ultimately the psychology is the same. You're still a reactionary, you're still an ideologue. It's just that you lack Jesus and love Marx instead. Again, this is something where you can say it. It's not an insult. It's just food for thought, everybody. Okay? Me thinking my thoughts on my fucking stream. And if you like my stream, you give me money for more streams. It's a good system, right? And then you can just not watch. If you don't like it, don't watch. If you do think I've got a point and I make you think and I challenge you and, you know, then fine. If you think I'm saying something that offends you, then fuck off. I'll just delete you. Like I did that dickhead yesterday. I don't care. I don't have to see it. And other people who are here in good faith don't have to look at your shit either. So, but the history of all of this is obscenity laws, right? Again, you need to understand the history of Puritanism, the fact that these debates have been going on for fucking ever. Okay. Now I'm using Puritanism in a colloquial general sense, right? There's a lot, you know, this isn't a theoretical fucking stream. If anyone's going to nitpick theory, they can go fuck themselves. I'm here to try and get ordinary people to start thinking about things that they would ordinarily be bored by because people are using too many fucking words. I'm here to make thinking accessible and keeping people sane and help them recalibrate and go, hey, you know what? There's something here that I'd be interested in. I might pick up a book. I might look further into this. And one of those things is to look into something like the Suicide de Scandale. I can't fucking do that shit. I always feel like a dickhead when I do French. Now, or looking into the history of obscenity laws, looking into fucking Comstock, okay? The Comstock law in the United States. And I'll talk a little bit about that. These are not new ideas. It's people being people, which is mostly, again, politics has a massive amount of genetic and environment, you know, the genetic environment component. A lot of it is fixed and set in stone with predispositions, okay? That's an evidence-based statement, as is the fact that there is no real evidence of direct harm between children consuming certain types of content, okay? And there's no real causal relationship. There's maybe a slightly correlative one in certain studies, and people go and run off and talk about correlations and causation, or one significant correlation, like the APA did a thing on was it young girls and sexuality, I think, or children and sexual content, I think, children and porn, right? And that's going to kill my channel. Shouldn't use those words too closely together. But the study, if I remember correctly, I haven't got it in front of me, and I haven't got the details. But if I remember correctly, it basically said, well, it's not necessarily, there is a correlative relationship, but it's largely because of messages around sex in society in general, in terms of advertising and stuff, which is that sex is commodified. Okay, so children get the message that this is something that is, you know, capital. Social capital. You can trade and transact and barter with sex, right? You can use sex as a transactional thing, okay? Again, I think that that's probably true. Second of all, but a lot of it is around the messaging. So obviously the link between media, women, particularly that women, to be an attractive sexual woman is to be thin, white, right? All of those sorts of things. And this is what a lot of this stuff tries to subvert. So there is a link there between that and eating disorders and other things. But again, this is it's complicated. But just because you're going off and saying a statement like that is bad for children, I think you need to understand, you need to break apart that thought, because that is something that is not necessary. There's not really any evidence for. So first up, okay. Second, and yes, am I using something like child protection, safeguarding? It's called safeguarding in the UK. It's called protective behaviours in social work, like protective behaviours. Obviously, I'm not advocating for the stripping of protective behaviours from children. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that ultimately we have to be evidence-based and based on, like, you have to be able to show that there is actual harm and, and have actual evidence. And this conversation has been going on for so long, okay? Just simply saying that is obscene, that's an opinion. It's not really something that's based in evidence, and that's all I'm saying, okay? Now, me calling people fuckwits is also, well, that's based on my evidence, but, like, not everything is about science and studies, but I'm saying in terms of your own personal and political development, in terms of thinking, is to really look at the way that you're interacting with these culture wars ideas. Are you being manipulated into, it's come out that it's not come out. I've been talking about this for ages, but WikiLeaks recently reposted something that they leaked from 2010 from the CIA, which is that they planned to use feminism, okay, online discourse about feminism and other social justice issues to manufacture consent to get people to stay in Afghanistan. This is what I saw and said the other day, which is that you're all falling for it and you're all sitting there being used as fucking human weapons. Okay, and this is why it's okay to be a pacifist in this stuff, but you are being reactionary when you participate in these things and get upset and get angry rather than look at evidence. And I'm not saying I'm fucking perfect. I'm not saying you can't have fun and laugh. But what I want to do is start getting people thinking about stuff, okay? Thinking about why they're doing this. Because what I'm seeing from a lot of, especially gender criticals and, is that they're sharing an awful lot of fucking MAGA content, a lot of conservative Christian content, which is propaganda. I mean, I'm going to talk about, remember how we talked about the cervical screen? There was that cervical screen website that did the rounds. I looked at that website, okay, with an open heart, an open mind, as someone who worked in tech. And you know what it was? It was a page for trans women optimized for SEO, because there's going to be trans women who don't know what a cervix is. And they think they might. They don't know if they need it. They also don't know who they can go to, where they need to get their cancer screens. And I've said this before. What do you want to do? There's no doctors to do that kind of fucking cancer screening. So where do they go? And that was the intention of the website. They didn't put it on the front page. The way that everyone carries on, they put it on the front page of this fucking website. It's all blown up out of proportion on Twitter. And suddenly there's this big narrative. Okay? And now I'm going to talk about the word bigot too. Because I took some time, because I realised there's a gap in language here. There's a gap. It's not just about being called closed-minded or racist or mean. Okay? Now, I did watch ContraPoints and I heard them out, all that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying I'm saying there are different schools who have different, like I talked about ideology a few days ago, and different schools have different definitions. And I realized that when they talk about like being a bigot, right, it's not necessarily what they mean. They don't mean it. It's in the school of thought. It's basically defined as having a view that is first of all, based on stereotyping and prejudice, right? But also has a political outcome attached to it. And that's what I think, that was the missing thing for me as well. I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about it that way. But again, I just took the time to understand. It's like, that's not that bad. Okay. Anyway, I rambled. But they're going to call me, that's the thing. They're just going to call you handmade and call your names and be mad. So just stay mad. I'm going to fucking just try to rescue people who have concerns and aren't thinking and feel that maybe they're acting in a way that's a bit more automatic and reactionary than they'd like, and they actually would like to be better at thinking things through before they participate in these conversations. And the Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey, okay, first of all, it was an arts festival, okay. And if again, I'll talk about some of this stuff. Because when you see how art and these forces of the obscenity laws and the Comstock laws and Puritanism and conservatives in the UK and what is a good and proper society. What is in a good and proper society? Well, it turns out that women in public at one point was not considered polite. Women being able to tell women what they wear in public. Okay. Now, and this is the thing about being reactionary, which is that, some of this woke stuff is quite reactionary, but it is reactionary for a reason, which is because it sits in opposition to those fucks. And I agree with that because I hate those fucks. My whole life has been about annoying fucking Christians and shit. Hate those fucking uptight pricks. Okay? I don't mean I hate Christians. You know what I mean? Fucking they annoy the shit out of me. Telling everyone what they can do and not do. Because they nah, get fucked, Bible basher. Not interested. Okay? Again, I'm not inciting anything. I'm saying my personal view is that you get on my tits. But throughout history, it's just been it's like, fuck you. I'm going to try. Fuck you. You're annoyed. You can't dictate what is and isn't moral in public space. You can't dictate what isn't accurate. So the irony of all these alt-right fucks literally just complaining about Twitter. Twitter are actually trying to do the best they can, but they're the ones on the side. Anyway, this is why you can see those active commentators in the culture wars aren't terribly well read. Okay. Now, initially when I started engaging with this stuff, I was just I think I gave way too much credit to people. I just assumed that if you went to college or if you were, this is the myth of merit. I was working on a bit about this with body positivity, and it's like, the thing about the TV, it's not that the thing that annoys me about these sort of fat, stupid people on TV, right? It's not that I'm offended by their presence. It's that with television or with media, for me, I've always associated these things with success. And it's like, well, if I see someone on TV who is really painfully fucking dumb, okay, or saying ridiculous fucking stupid shit, in your mind, you can sort of rationalize it and go, oh, well, they're really, really good looking. So, I'm not on, again, it's about my own, it's usually about your own shit. Why am I not succeeding? Why am I not accepted? Why am I not loved? Why is no one listening to me? Those sorts of deep, dark questions. What's wrong with me? Okay. Now, the reason why I don't like seeing fucking fat, stupid people on TV, okay, is because I like to think that I'm not there and I'm not on the panel or whatever because of some quality that I've got, right? So when you see someone who's dumber and uglier than you on television, you don't want to see ugly, dumb people on TV. It's why we love reality TV so much, is that we love to feel good about our own failure and go, well, at least I'm not that guy. At least I'm not that guy. And that's something that you need to be self-aware about. And you need to go, okay, so I think that's the difference where, this sort of holy alliance or unholy alliance between sort of progressives and the right wing and the conservative Christians, inexplicably, is that the conservative Christians actually just they just don't want anyone to have any fucking non-Jesus fun. Okay? They would just, they want everyone to be stuck at a church fucking picnic talking about how much they love Jesus all the time. Oh my God. It's like, goodness me, that's almost as bad as a LinkedIn networking event. Almost. So, anyway, What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, I think it's really important to examine why you're upset about something and why you're sharing something. Because a lot of this disinformation stuff, a lot of radicalization stuff, a lot of these, targeted campaigns, a lot of it's astroturf and bullshit. This is how you vaccinate yourself against bullshit, okay? Which is to think about things before you share them. And that's where I've talked about friction before, but that's what Twitter are trying to do, which is trying to sort of interrupt you, trying to short circuit that sort of lizard brain that's obviously being hijacked right now. And again, they mean well. But the problem is that they mean well over here, and then you go, oh, well, over there. So these fuckwits, the irony is that if these conservative fuckwads would stop screaming about fucking Orwell all the time and making everything 100 times worse, okay, and flooding, and this is what I've talked about, gender critical, flooding the mentions and all the bad optics, I think things would settle down. Things have settled down a lot since Trump fucking disappeared, okay? That's the thing. It's like you're making the problem worse than you're feeding the problem, and that's my point. Well, I've got many points. I've rambled. But I gotta take it. Hang on, I gotta take tablets. It's that time of day. It's bad time of day. Hang on. But it's not about the Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey, is my point. I think it's funny. But also, okay, oh, that's right. No, sorry. I've talked about this before. Grease. I think a lot of people, especially young girls, were fans of Grease. If you're of my generation, you fucking loved Grease growing up. Well, you loved The Simpsons, okay? Grew up watching The Simpsons. Do you remember when The Simpsons first came out? And everyone, remember this, fucking America was mad at The Simpsons. Everyone was mad. My mum hated The Simpsons, but I live with my dad, so I love watching The Simpsons because it pissed off my mum. Okay? But everyone was mad at Bart Simpson because he had bad manners and bad language and he was disrespectful to authority. Remember that? Simpsons. Everyone thought that Bart fucking Simpson was the worst thing to happen because he dared to question authority, okay? Oh, but, Marge Simpson's fine. Marge Simpson's perfectly fine. Okay, I love Marge, but anyway. But Homer Simpson, people were mad about South Park, okay? People were mad about The Simpsons. People are mad about fucking everything. And usually the reason that they're mad is because it's an affront to their worldview and not of someone else's. Now, I happen to think that worshipping somebody who was strung up on fucking wood is a slight affront to my fucking worldview. Okay? I think praying for somebody to return to a perfectly wonderful, beautiful planet is a nice and easy escape, but it's an affront to my worldview. I think what a lot of people do in the name of religion, especially in Christianity, and that's an affront to my worldview. I don't want it banned. I want you to get the fuck off my fucking doorstep, but I don't want it banned. Okay? If there's a preacher in public, okay, you walk past, leave him alone. As long as he's not harassing anybody or hurting anybody. Was Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey hurting anybody? No. If anything, it was probably just a fucking overreach and a bad idea. I don't think that anyone who's in the arts thought, again, if you look at the apology, it was largely about being inappropriate, right? It wasn't offensive. I thought it was funny, but also, okay, Grease. All I liked was the songs. I spent my whole, and I was pretty, again, like I said, I was sexually assaulted as a toddler, okay, and again as a young teen. Different people, okay. I grew up with my dad had porn and all that sort of shit. It didn't, it wasn't something, I'm not saying that, no, I was fine. Again, I'm not, sample size of one, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just telling you about a personal experience. I'm also a dissociator, so it's a little bit, I'm a bit different. But, okay, this is when children don't take that stuff in. necessarily. If anything, they're mostly just bewildered and confused by it. Okay. Now, most of the evidence is that, obviously, I'm not advocating for children watching porn. I'm not advocating for this stuff. I'm just trying to get you thinking about why people say what they say online and where the misunderstandings might be, which is that, a lot of this there's no real evidence for it. A lot of it is just opinion, field opinion based on your own personal morality. Like for me, one of my things is, well, as long as it pisses off the powerful, it's fucking fine with me. As long as it pisses off the ruling class, it's fucking fair game. As long as it annoys LinkedIn fucking like brunch ladies, I'm in. As long as it annoys those she, her fucking opportunist people, I'm in. If it pisses you off, I fucking like it. Okay. That's a contrarian personality that I've got. It's been hardwired and modeled to me as a kid to not really respect authority. Again, some people do respect that stuff and think, again, like there's this morality stuff. The morality framework exists on the right that doesn't necessarily exist on the left. They're different frameworks. So hierarchy is not important psychologically in terms of your political psychology, morality, structure, hierarchy, Christian, religious values, those sorts of things. They are largely different worldviews, right? Different based on personality types. So for me, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I thought it was funny. Okay. First of all, it was an arts event. Second of all, it was like with standing next to it was all self-made costumes and stuff. And it was like a frog and a crazy thing and whatever. I would say that the dildo is probably a bit much. And I think you could largely expect that. But at the same time, that's what art is. Art gives you that ability. And yes, I am going to say that Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey was art. This is where it needs to be untouchable. This is where I'm concerned about. This is that radicalization thing and not being able to laugh, which is radical feminists and fucking, Christian conservatives and people losing their fucking sense of proportion and humor about it. It was an arts festival. It's art. Art is where you have the conversation. And art has been under. Shakespeare was censored because people thought he was too vulgar. Okay, now, it would only be a Taya stream if I was linking William Shakespeare to Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey and the goose twerker. But when you look at it in terms of politically, the role of art, because we don't get to determine what art is. Okay, it becomes a conversation about the war on art using children as the weapon. And as a thought-terminating cliche, okay, in order to terminate your thinking, to stop you thinking, and to stop you reflecting and going, hang on, why am I upset about this funny fucking thing? All right? Also, guess what? This is funny. I don't give a shit. It's fucking funny. I tweeted it and I shared it and I was like, I don't see I'm sorry, but comedy wins this one. It's fucking hilarious. It's obviously meant to entertain and shock. That was the intention. Okay, I'm going to talk about Comstocking in a minute, right? But the intention was to shock you. So then you act shocked, and then you fucking share it and share your outrage and share your shock, and I'm like, ha. Well, it worked. What you're doing, you feed the machine. You feed the machine. And then you feed the narrative. You feed the narrative that progressives and the left and anybody who questions neoliberal fucking capitalism, United States imperial bullshit, intelligence community, and all that shit, right? Anybody who dares ask questions about that stuff is depraved and, responsible for the downfall of family values, society. Yeah, parental alienation is a big thing, okay. But I also think it's important now, and I can speak very personally about this, which is that sitting and reflecting on yourself as a parent and is one of the most important things you could ever do, okay. And also, yes, we need to protect the children, okay? Of course. Give them protective behaviours. Teach them boundaries, okay? Is this a breach of boundaries? Honestly, okay, again, Grease. When I watched Grease, what did you see when you were a kid? What did you see when you watched Grease when you were a kid? Lots of cool songs. Fucking Sandy. That yellow dress with the white cardigan and the hair and shit. Fucking brilliant. Sandy was the best. Grease 2's better, but bear with me. Rizzo. Fucking rebel. Cool. I relate more to Rizzo, but I'm just saying, right? Grease, brilliant. Archetypes. Okay. I fucking took 15 to 20 years. I didn't know what fucking broke in the car with Kaneki till I was 26 years old. I was like, it's a condom. Okay, I've talked about this before. I watched that movie hundreds and hundreds of times as a kid. A little bit obsessive. But I watched that stuff hundreds and hundreds of times. I was exposed to pornographic content. I was assaulted, and I still didn't see it because no one told me what it was. I didn't know. And yes, kids have access to Google now. That's a problem. It's a parenting thing. That's a societal problem. The threat is bigger than fucking some dude who put a strap onto a fucking costume. Right? This is what I'm saying, is that you're feeding this machine of outrage and you don't even know why. And also, you've become those people that see a pedo in every corner. People making vast generalizations. It's already there. I think it was a good move to distance myself from, the TERFs or gender criticals, whatever, okay? Because all I'm seeing is, why do they always have porn names and they name the 6 predators? It's like, who always has that? I don't know. I know many trans people that don't have porn names. Okay, making mass generalizations and large brushes and just going, whew. That's what we've attached ourselves to. And when they say you sound like a Christian conservative, that's what they mean. Reactionary. Okay. Not thinking clearly, not evidence-based. And I'm not saying that wokeism is evidence-based. I'm saying it's a different school of thought and that there is some benefit to some of it's the fact that people think that the whole fucking school system it's like, no, this thing, I've talked about this again before. When it's just the fire jumped the road, this is all fucking fuckery from the government, from like the CIA and shit. War people, capitalism, marketers, market segments. They're all using this fucking thing. They use cancel culture so that employers can just can sack you for fucking no reason. It's got nothing to do with your fucking view and everything to do with the power imbalance between employer and employee. They found a way to contractually get rid of you and not have to pay you severance under the gross misconduct loophole. Fuck me. Okay? There's no great conspiracy other than fucking capitalism. It's not a conspiracy. It's just how markets work, which is that bad people will use these things for bad purposes, like making everyone whip into a frenzy over women in Afghanistan. It was a psyop. Okay? And I'm not saying it's not a problem. It's also just none of your fucking business. Let them have a go. Okay? Maybe it's slightly conservative and slightly arrogant and slightly imperialist and fucking, Christian right of you and evangelical of you to think that your worldview is so great and so perfect that you should impose that on everybody else. I think maybe that the women of Afghanistan can actually maybe organise, support themselves, work towards revolution and all of those things, negotiate for their own shit. I think maybe you're just fucking taking away their agency. And I see that a lot with my that's my stutter. Muslim friends that I know who choose to wear hijabs and that sort of thing. It's like, she's not a shell of a fucking person. Jesus. She is a thinking, and that's the thing, is that inadvertent thing where you strip children of their agency, right? This nanny bullshit that you can't, that first of all, that they're the world's fucking parent and they're perfect because somehow the people who go to church every Sunday are perfect even though they're fucking assholes. Nah, that's not parenting and that's not values. You gotta live your values. Like I said, I've said this before about this belief and behavior. You can believe whatever the fuck you want. I judge you on how you behave. Okay? How you behave towards your enemies, how you behave towards the poor, how you behave towards the vulnerable, how you behave towards those who disagree. Now, the internet's different. I can tell people to fuck off because people lack boundaries and they need to be told to fuck off. Okay, that's self-defense. But don't throw the first punch. But I'm saying, like, live your values. Anyway. But what did you see of Greece? You didn't see fucking sexual content. You didn't see cheekiness. You imposed adults imposed a worldview onto children that children didn't necessarily see. And you know what? I've had many children. I have 3 children, okay? And 1 stepchild. And a girl and 2 boys. And do you know what? You know what? I've seen fucking young children, how they act when they see something like that, okay? The nanny parenters, the helicopter parents, they often raise their children to be afraid of everything, okay? And that manifests in the child. The child is perpetually fucking afraid. The kid that's always crying and afraid of fucking clowns and cars and noises and fucking all that shit, okay? Helicopter parents. And the conservative fucking Christians, the people, attachment parents, you know, they think all this shit, right? They overthink all of it and the kid is fucking anxious. I'm a fan of free range parenting. Now, again, it's not perfect. A little bit more attention. The fact that I realized that I'm a dissociator when shit gets hard, like that was quite confronting for me to learn. But, you know, I'm not perfect. So my kids have their beef with, I'm not pretending that I know anything about parenting. Okay? I know as much as anybody else who's made a fucking human being from scratch and tried to figure it out. Okay, I didn't have real parental role models, so it's even harder. Okay, but what I am saying is that, oh shit, my computer's about to fucking die. Hang on, let me just adjust the power. Hang on. I think we're okay now, hopefully. For some reason, I think the adapter's broken. That's right. I'll turn this off. Okay. I was going to talk about Comstocking, but power source, power adapter. Yep, it's charging. Good-o. Okay. But one thing I've observed, mothers groups, this is the benefit of wisdom and age. Okay. So the mummy forum wars, arguing. Can I say that a lot of the mothers who spent most of their time online arguing and with other mothers about how to parent their babies, their kids grew up pretty fucking terribly. Okay. Another thing that I've seen, again, it's a balance, right? You've got to model behavior. Children don't care what you say. They pay attention to what you do. And that's one thing I've learned as well. Also, children are largely fucking hardwired. When you have more than one kid, you realize just how true that is, which is that they come out pre-made. They're basically a fucking plant. Water them, feed them, guide them, move them into the sun from time to time. But they mostly fucking, they are who they are. You don't have a lot of influence, and that's something, and that lack of, again, that's when you talk about the reaction and won't someone think of the children. A lot of mothers project their anxieties about motherhood and their unresolved trauma. And, you never fully, even just unconsciously, like unresolved shit, man hatred, fucking everything, their whole world. And they unload all of that onto a little kid. Okay. And that's the same thing with like sexuality, their own baggage, their own fucking issues, their own insecurities. And I know that that's really hard. I've done that. I've made that mistake in the past of I still sometimes do it, but I try to just mostly go, no, they're their own people. But this is where imposing, again, as somebody who grew up without real parenting, okay, Now, the conservatives among you who have a problem with my swearing or think that I'm saying something stupid or whatever would think that I was raised pretty poorly. But I didn't. I actually just figured stuff out as I grew up. I'm resilient. I'm kind. I'm empathetic. Okay. Potty mouth. Don't care. It's effective. Okay. I don't talk like this in meetings, for fuck's sake. But when you're imposing your fucking ideas onto a child, your ideas about the world, your hopes for the world, but also your childhood trauma onto that little kid. And these mummy wars is, it's there as well. But it's also your fears. Okay, this is why people get so funny about child abuse. Okay, because losing your kid is, to sexual abuse, or even someone who or losing or outliving your child, trying to having your child murdered or whatever, or dying or whatever. I've had friends whose kids have died of childhood illnesses, and I don't know how they could do it, But at the same time, we're also incredibly resilient, and humans are remarkably resilient, and we tend to overstate these things. Okay, we tend to overstate how long grief will take, and how quickly people can integrate and live a normal life after grief. But what these things do is they represent our worst fears, and I think that what we're doing is, Twitter, because it's all lizard brain, it's all fucking. I'm saying, just think about it. Yeah, it's okay if you're doing this because you truly believe that it's offensive or vulgar or political or whatever. But I actually think that a large portion of people are sharing this stuff because they're afraid, they're not being heard, they've transferred. I don't use the word transference, but they've sort of misdirected fear and anger and grief and the biggest fear that a parent could ever have is that, their child wouldn't be safe and okay. And that doesn't, that protective, that mama bear thing. If you're a parent, you know what it is. It's fucking, you can't control it. It's like primal, okay? But there's a lot of people who mistake that primal tendency for their own shit and use it to rationalize their own shit. Again, I'm saying this, I used to teach, I actually used to teach. So when I graduated as a social worker, I graduated with a social science degree, which gave me enough sort of, qualifications and stuff I took a few courses and stuff to go and do field work in child protection in the country. Okay. I did a 6-month stint there, fucking felt like 6 years. But then I worked in the foster care training in the one-to-one foster care, right, which is the kids who had repeated foster care breakdowns. And I would train those parents, okay, or run presentations. Why the fuck a 23-year-old is doing this? That's a whole other fucking question. Like, honestly, I don't know why what the fuck? Why are 20-year-olds in the field? But that's a whole side point. But I did it. I was trained. Imagine being a fucking 23-year-old running a presentation to fucking 50-year-olds. But a big part of that is for them to understand that these kids, that the worst thing that you can do in a foster care situation, or because a lot of foster parents have to be psychologically screened, but particularly for ones that are in the one-to-one. So they're the ones that are hard to place, have repeated breakdown, have, like severe disability, like they're very difficult to place. So they need one-to-one. So they can't be in foster care with other kids, like a rescue dog that can't do other dogs. Oh, fuck, here we go. People are going to think that I'm pro fucking like whatever. Fuck off. They're unrelated. But I'm joking. This is why art needs to be free. You need to be free to talk about stuff and free to be wrong. But anyway, but what would happen is that the worst thing that you could actually do is to go into something like doing foster care, okay, with preconceived ideas about what that kid is for you and what you're going to do to that kid, because that kid already comes bundled with so much fucking trauma. And that they're being ripped, either their parents died, they have, like the sense of abandonment. And so this is where, like, again, this is all degrees, but I'm talking about an extreme version of this because I'm just remembering it now, about how we impose these things onto children, but where there's no evidence in terms of child development, in terms of science, in terms of psychology, in terms of outcomes, right? That a guy strapping a fucking rainbow dildo to himself has any, like, real harm. Okay. Yes, you're offended. Yes, you have good reasons for doing that. That's okay. We live in a pluralist society. You don't own the public space. Okay. And that's always going to be a negotiation. And that's my point. But I have many points. But when you go on as a foster carer, you've really got to do some work on yourself. You have to do therapy. I mean, honestly, to be honest, they're so hurting. This is an ideal world, right? This is part of the reason why I couldn't do social work anymore, is because I'm too idealistic, and I tend to, I don't like it when things fall short of perfection, and that's, it's good with code, not so good with people, or myself, or my mental health. But when you're doing an intensive foster care, you're signing up as a foster carer. The people who are drawn to foster care, a lot of the reasons why they're doing it is because they want to fucking save something. They want to fix some shit. It's that with them as a child, or they want to, and they're going to transfer all of their shit onto saving this kid who may or may not be able to be saved. And that's, this is another grim reality when it comes to, like, the child protection system. Okay. And again, I'm saying safeguarding this is real safeguarding. Okay. Which is safeguarding kids from adults who are fucking with these kids' heads for what they think are the right reasons as well. Okay, which is because kids are just fucking, that's right. I was saying that I've got young kids. I've had 3 6-year-olds. I've had 3 4-year-olds. I've had 3 8-year-olds. Okay, I've had 3 10-year-olds. It's not a sample size of, it's not a sample size of 30, but it's a decent sample based on what I've seen. Okay, ordinary kids would have just seen a fucking funny thing and it's got a butt and a dick. That's it. That's it. They wouldn't have sexualized it. That's an adult imposition based on values that, this is the thing about that sort of decency thing. Anyway, I was going to talk more about Comstock laws and Comstock. Okay, so I'll move on. So in the United States, right? So again, I'm not just picking on America because this stuff came through the UK. So through the history of obscenity law in the United States is quite a rich tapestry of fucking of shit. But this culture war is ongoing. It's the same language, the same arguments, the same stuff over and over and over again. That's my point. And it doesn't go anywhere. But ultimately, we still find a way to live together. We figure it out. And everyone's mad, but I think maybe you should think about what you're feeding and what you're sharing and what role you play in this, and why, when people say you're being reactionary or, conservative or, anti-trans by pointing this stuff out, or because I actually also think drag queens are fucking great. I love drag shows. They're fabulous and they're funny, right? This is the thing where it's like, I'm apparently not allowed to fucking like drag queens now. So I fucking love drag queens. I love trans people. I think it's great. I have more in common, I would say. I have more in terms of principles in common with Rainbow Dildo Butt Monkey and Goose Twerker than I do with, like, your average rad femme. Because I have a strong sense of humour, sense of the absurd. I understand the history. And I also know that a lot of this stuff is designed to piss you off. So it fucking works. So Comstocking, okay. Now, it's been used differently in different places. It can be this is my area, which is where, many areas, but some of the stuff that I used to do when I was consulting and I was specialist in and known for was value proposition work, understanding positioning, okay, doing like comms, right? So like communications, but really being clear on what you're doing with your social media. So if you follow me, you'll know that I have a very clear idea of my voice. I'm getting better. I feel like I've found my voice now. and what my, my product and brand is. But I've built this brand over 25 years, right? This is something, and the book's coming, but I'm just saying I have a very clear idea of who my customers are, but a lot of people don't have an idea of who their customers are not. I talked about this in the KFC video. KFC do this really well. The succès de scandale, right? Which is this idea that, no publicity is bad publicity. Okay. Also, something like the Streisand effect, which is something that you might be aware of. And like Comstocking is in politics or American politics, something where the more that with your aggressive campaign against something, people are more likely to pay attention to it, more likely to double down, and you're more likely to end up campaigning for that thing by your opposition to it. And that's what's actually happened here, I think, largely with the trans stuff, the gender stuff. I don't think it's necessarily, I think that it's at least part of it, which is that when you attach, and this is another reason why I don't like attaching myself to conservatives, and it's not because, again, I'm saying the conservative movement as a group. Obviously, when you're in business and an actual adult in the real world, you have friends who are everywhere in all walks of life. I have friends everywhere. The new podcast is going to be basically that, talking to everybody, okay? Which is what I love to do, is everybody's got a story and everyone's awesome, okay? But because I just reject caste system. I reject class. I believe that we all have the same pain. We all have the same impulses. We see things differently, but inside, I think we're all, and it's not fucking hippy dippy bullshit. It's actually, when you take the time. I understand the conservative worldview. I just don't share it, okay? I just don't think that some external force on morality is the answer. I think it works for some people. I think that having that sort of social pressure and external idea, like I don't need a 10 commandments. I don't need it because it just isn't right. It's wrong. It's violent. I don't like hurting people. Like that. I have my own morality. Okay. I don't need a framework in which to live my life. It doesn't work that way. If anything, I live in opposition to being told what to do. That's my number one, right? Independence is my number one value. Being left the fuck alone. But I was going to say, yeah, like that shared humanity stuff is really something that I feel strongly about, and I think it's really important to have more of those conversations. But it's also not about status. Like the reason why I want to do side point, but the reason why I want to do, I had an epiphany about the People Are Great podcast that I was planning, because I did that thing with branding. I'll come back to branding and positioning, which is that. Because when you're working on marketing strategy, the first thing that you would do is, who are you? What does it mean when Taya walks out and puts herself out into the world? What is the thing that you want people, no, this isn't about other people at this point. It's about who you are. Define who you are. Do your values exercise, right? Do Jonathan Haidt's, what's that? The morality thing. The psych tools are there. Do personality quizzes. Learn about yourself. Do therapy. Learn about yourself. I know a lot. I know myself better than nobody could tell me anything about myself, especially in a fucking comment or tweet or whatever. But nobody, and who hasn't met me, nobody could tell me anything that I'm not mostly aware of myself, aside from the fact that I fucking dissociate with trauma. I didn't realize that. I've got to work on that shit. Got a bit of PTSD, but that's okay. We're not perfect. I learned that in psych class when we were talking about memory and dissociative identity and shit. I don't have that, but it's obviously on a spectrum. But I have, like with narcolepsy, where you can have that emotional trigger and fall asleep. I have that emotional trigger and I fucking leave my body, right? I didn't realize. And then I joked and I said that to my son and he goes, oh yeah, tell me something I don't know. I was like, oh, thanks, mate. So I don't think I'm actually on the spectrum, autistic. I think that was just confusing. I think it's actually dissociation. So that's interesting. So I still have ADD. But ADHD, I didn't realize that ADHD and dissociative identity disorder, they're highly comorbid. And I'd never even considered it before because I always thought that it was like fucking split personalities and stuff. It's not. It's it's like degrees and spectrum stuff. I always think of that episode of The Simpsons when Homer leaves his body, It's like that. I feel like I leave my body when shit is bad. Which is interesting. But that's what I'm saying, is doing the work. doing the work and to understand yourself, okay? I shouldn't be, I'm really working hard on fighting that fucking stereotype that people who study psychology are fucking crazy. But I'm not. I'm saying it's interesting to learn about yourself, okay, is very important. And that's one thing I think, as much as I have issues with Jordan Peterson's politics and not sure that he's necessarily a good faith actor in all of this, is that, working on yourself is actually the best way to improve yourself for others. But that works in branding too, okay? So if you want to have an actual impact on the world, okay, you need to know who you are, okay? And that's a whole journey that you've got to go through. But then you go, okay, so as part of a brand exercise, you'll say, okay, who am I? What makes me happy? What's most important to me? Okay. Now for me, it's about being fucking left the fuck alone, but I also just love people. But not in the like love people in a social way. I love people like a Dr. House puzzle social way. I like to understand where people are coming from and dissect it and understand, almost like a political psychologist would be. Like how that, those tiny little fucking lizard brain things interact with the bigger worldview, right? It's like, yeah, it's really, I love that kind of thing. So I just genuinely love and find people interesting, okay? And I'm probably good at empathizing with people when better than, politically speaking. So I think that there's that. But so it's like, what do I love doing? I love laughing at everything. I love absurdity and contrast and juxtaposition and fucking ridiculousness. Like that lady dancing on the goose. I'll show you again. Where's my mouse gone? Motherfucker. All right, my computer's decided to be a shithead. Way to quit tech, Taya, before you get a new computer and have money to buy a new computer, motherfucker. Ugh. Anyway, no, but you figure out who you are. But then you go, okay, so what do I have to offer to the world? Everyone has something to offer to the world. Everyone, when you interact with others, what impact do you want to have on them? Okay. And this is why it's like when you do YouTube streams or whatever, it's like, well, no, I don't, there's no point doing a certain style because it attracts a certain style of person. Like I don't want clips really, unless I have to, because you attract people who aren't going to hear you out, don't have time, don't take the time, okay? Becomes an intimacy. There's an intimacy with people who regularly watch this stuff, okay? That's different to like your standard YouTube community, right? Again, it's about once you know what your values are and how you interact with the world and how you interface with the world, you can be, and also what your boundaries are. So for me, I talk about parts of my private life, but there are parts of my private life that I don't talk about, okay? It's not for public consumption. And that's my thing because I've also learned from that the hard way, which is, early internet, sharing everything hurts people. It does, like drama, it hurts people, okay? And so I do less of that. Now, the only time I'll share something private is when it's funny or I can turn it into a joke or there's something that I can give someone else. Like talking about that dissociation, it's like, oh, shit, okay, maybe someone else might get help that way, right? I talk about stuff to enable others, but not out of narcissism or anything like that. And it's not really that, it's not really, it can be perceived that way because it's on a stream, but it's really not. It's not my motivation. My motivation is to reach people and learn about people and interact with people and just reassure people that things are going to be okay and that things aren't as bad as they can be. We're always teetering on a cliff, okay? If you listen to the fucking Puritans in the fucking 18th century in the UK, the world was ending because, naughty pamphlets were being published. If you'd listen to Mary Wollstonecraft, okay, who took issue with fucking, was it the satirical animal thing? Was it Thomas? What's his name? That guy. Okay. If you listen to Mary Wollstonecraft, misogyny was never going to get better. It was always going to be. And he's like, nah, calm your tits. Still a very influential and important feminist, very important debate. It's an ongoing debate about punching up, punching down, you know, political implications of comedy, free speech, all of those things. Those things aren't new, okay? But we do have an ongoing constant war between art and the fucking Comstock fucks. Now, what's Comstock? Let's talk about Comstock. I'll share the screen. I was going to just like, my other mouse is in the lounge room. Hang on. I will get a system, proper system. I think I've done pretty well given the fucking low degree of like, look at this stand. Hang on. Look at the stand. It's held together with tape. And Paul told me off because apparently like painting tape is like really super expensive. He's like, do you want some masking tape? Because this is $40 a roll. I was like, oh, well, whoops. Anyway, so Comstock laws. Once more. Also, oh yeah, I tweeted that. Hang on, that's what I was going to say. I tweeted that. And I said, I don't see what the fucking problem is. It's funny. It's art. She's performing. It's ridiculous. It's designed to shock you and it worked. And then people reply. This is why I love, do you know what? Turning off notifications for everyone you don't follow is fucking blissful. It's blissful. It's not snowflake shit. It's just good for you. It's good for your mental health. Because then I got replies, animal cruelty and consent, which was an odd one. And this is what I was like, okay, consent to what? The goose? Or your consent to not see things you don't like? That's an odd one. Consent? What? You're sexualizing this and if anything, it's kind of a mental distortion because you're actually undermining the very real. This is one of the things I have an issue with around sort of watering down this idea of consent, which is that, like this affirmative consent stuff. It's good, but it doesn't work in real life, right? You fucking like in a marriage, you don't do that. You know, it's just yes. Again, I think that there's an overcorrection, and this is largely fueled by like this continued polarizing and opposition, which is that one side feels the need to double down against those fucks. Okay. Oh, okay. Want a root? Nah. Ah, come on then. Nah. I'm not minimizing street harassment. I'm just saying it's out of proportion. It's not the only thing. Okay. And that's what I'm just saying, like this consent stuff. I'd never heard the argument of consent used to rationalize being offended before. And animal abuse, well, you know what? You don't know. Maybe her and the geese are in love. The goose. Also, again, I talked about being from the country yesterday. Geese are cunts. They're aggressive pricks. I'm pretty sure that goose could defend itself. If you ask me, maybe that goose was fucking screaming at her and running towards her and she had to... It's not what it seems. I mean, they went on a farm and she was twerking. I'm just saying, you don't know. Geese are assholes. I'm not saying that being an asshole means you deserve to be twerked on. But I'm saying also when you understand the cultural stuff around, when you learn to... this is Art of War. Sun Tzu, okay? For all the people that masturbate over fucking war and military and like psyops and shit, they don't seem to have read The Art of War, where one of the main fucking messages from it is know your enemy better than they know themselves. Politically. Not military. I'm a pacifist. It's foundational. Why are you not taking the time to learn this stuff and learn where they're coming from? That's how you learn how to persuade people. Okay? Now, the twerking thing I've learned is it's kind of a little political stunt. There's been people who twerk on police cars, which is fucking hilarious. Right? They just sort of break out. It's like the flash mobs and they twerk and it's an act of protest against authority. It shocks people. It's designed to shock you. And if you're shocked, then you're one of the people. Again, I'm not saying lighten up around horrific shit. I'm saying lighten up. You look like a fucking Christian. who's screeching at pedophiles all the time. You know, like that in Catherine Tate's show, that woman who just screams at like the noise from a series, like all the time. She's afraid of everything. It's like henny penny. People won't listen when shit actually starts. When you start to, yell about everything and scream about, that's why I only talk about 4 fucking things. But when you actually yell and scream and alert and alarm all the time, people get bored with you. They get sick of you and like boy who cried wolf bullshit. Okay. Like that's just, people switch off. If you want to have maximum impact, you should be targeted and strategic and know what's what. Have your head level. Not be screaming about pedos at every corner. Okay. Which is not the case. Look at the evidence. The second that you start to sound crazy when you're not actually arguing from a place of evidence, but arguing from a place of emotion. And it feels true. All right. Now, Comstock laws, United States. Okay. Comstock laws were a set of federal acts passed by the United States Congress under the Grant administration along with related state laws. Okay. Now, it's a whole thing, but it's a whole history of fucking like obscenity laws. So there's a whole history of obscenity laws, right? Right. This United States obscenity law, the whole fucking thing. Look at this. Their whole history. That's not all of it, but yeah. It's a constant battle. 7 dirty words you can't say on television. George Carlin taken for court. Criminal charges. Lenny Bruce locked up. Fucking indecency. It's constant. Fucking Puritans versus the rest of us. Okay? Comstock laws. Now, the political implications of Comstock laws. Now, the problem is I think I might have a tradie coming soon, so if I have to go, I have to go, but I'm going to rush. But look, so basically it was a bunch of laws, right, where it criminalized any use of the US Postal Service to send any of the following items, okay? Obscenity, contraceptions, abortifacients, sex toys. And personal letters with any sexual content or information, or any information regarding the above items. Now, it's the same thing with this Apple child pornography like stealth thing. These laws were fucking abused for everything. Okay, now, where are we? So the text of the law, where are we? So it's largely about birth control. Okay, so the objective of the laws, listen to this. This was 150 years ago to whatever the fucking numbers are. I don't know. Comstock laws targeted pornography, contraceptive equipment, and such educational materials as descriptions of contraceptive methods and other reproductive health-related materials. Of particular note were advertisements for abortifacients found in penny papers, which offered pills to women as treatment for obstruction of their monthly periods. Doesn't that sound interesting? The arguments. There's you're interrupting nature. Again, you could see how when you put arguments in terms of zero-sum stuff, 0, 1, 0, and then you look at what side you're on and you go, okay, well, let's apply this to puberty blockers. Oh, someone's telling me I can't do anything with my own body. Okay, I know I'm exaggerating. Comstock's ideas of what is obscene, lewd, or lascivious, I can't say that word, were quite broad. During his time of greatest power, some anatomy textbooks were prohibited from being sent to medical students by the United States Postal Service. However, it's claimed that Comstock had no intention of penalising normal birth control information, and by normal he means married, okay? But it must be used by children for premarital sex. You're corrupting the children. We've been going at this, you know how much fucking research and how much science there has been on the harms of fucking media leading to fucking the destruction and degradation of society over the fucking years? Heaps. Guess what? None. No correlation. Mixed. Okay? No causal relationship. It's complicated. Most of the kids who develop addictions like online addictions, gaming addictions, problematic porn use, all of those things, they have a predisposition. They're vulnerable to begin with. And this is why why don't you focus on fucking on material shit, like making it so that people can feed their kids and they have a future and they can get education and healthcare and fucking housing. I would think that being kicked out of your house repeatedly during a pandemic might make you slightly more vulnerable to being radicalized. More than a fucking rainbow butt monkey. Whatever the fuck. Okay. So Anthony Comstock stated that he was determined to act the part of a good citizen, meaning that he had every intention of upholding the law. He started off by beginning a campaign against the saloons in his New York neighborhood of Brooklyn. Prohibitionists. Remember how I said the Radfems teamed up with the prohibitionists to tell us all what to fucking do with our lives and bodies. This. Okay. The biggest contributor to igniting Comstock's mission always comes back to pain. To rid of any and all obscene material. Hang on. Let's see. Any and all obscene material was when one of his dear friends died. Comstock blamed his death on him being led astray and corrupted and diseased. As for a person to blame, Comstock laid all of it on Charles Conroy, who had sold his friend erotic materials from a basement on Warren Street. After this incident, he continued the crusade throughout his neighbourhood, and while doing so, kept a ledger that had a record of every arrest he had made. Okay. It always starts with fucking pain and misdirection of fucking pain. Okay? And Christians are the fucking, again, making massive generalizations, but I would say that if you believe are religious in nature, nothing against people who, again, you need that. That's, it's fine. It's that external force, and it helps you to feel secure in chaos. Like, I'm okay with chaos. Can't you tell? Right? I'm fine with chaos. I live in it. Okay? I've never had any money, never had any power, never had any, stability in my life. And it's normal for me. I'm okay during the pandemic because I'm cool. I'm used to it. Okay? But there's a large portion of people who come unstuck because they need to feel like everything is connected and random rather than just this happy, messy, fucking beautiful mess that we're in. Okay. And that's where I think religion is, and politics in particular. Okay. But they're one and the same now. Okay. You can't have politics without religion. You can't have religion without politics. But they have the same impact on the brain. Okay. Same fucking scan. Scans don't lie. Data lies, but sometimes, evidence doesn't really lie. That's why I like to be evidence-based. Okay, so anyway, boring. Now, obscenity, 1957. Okay, hang on, where are we? So again, look, up until 1957, I have read this, but I'm just running out of time and I'm like distracted because I'm waiting for a truck to come and I'm going to have to sign off as soon as it shows up. But under the Comstock laws, like, you can read this page yourself, right? But it basically was, here we go, obscenity arguments. As the chief proprietor of the law, many of Comstock's justifications revolved around the effects that all of the obscene literature would have on children. He argued that the corruption in the schools, does sound familiar, and in the home, sound familiar? All those people going about single mothers, fatherless children, right? Porn on the internet, trans people, gender identity, fucking rainbow costumes, drag queens, okay? This is the side of the argument that you find yourself on, historically speaking. Again, I know that there's complexities. I'm just pointing this out. Okay. He also argued, here we go. So he argued that the corruption in the schools and in the home were because of all of the obscene literature that the youth had easy access to. It's the same argument. He also argued that the vast amounts of obscenity would cause for the sanctity of marriage to be corrupted, along with the power of the church. And it always comes down to the power of the church as well. It's an institution that's failing. Okay. Now, the United States is clinging to the same power because I have a feeling that, people have had pretty much enough of their shit. I feel like the United States may be a lion with a thorn in its paw. Okay. The jig's up. If you listen to me, the jig's up. Most people don't listen, but I'm hoping that I can have a broader impact, which is that people see that these culture wars are coming from the powerful. This is what I said about ideology and Marx, right? Which is that, it's part of superstructure. Ideology is used as a weapon to keep us fighting and not seeing our same interests, right? Comstock mainly focused on voicing his concerns to families of privilege. This is how he gained a majority of his support. Okay. Anyway, I've got to go. That's a shame. It was too long anyway, but I've got to go. Read that. But also, I might do another thing on this, on the success to stand all. But it works. It's basically people. But if you understand that this constant ongoing tension between the radical right and the Christian right and this, they're going to get it wrong. They're going to get it wrong. They're going to be outraged. But they're always going to be fucking mad. The point is, they're always going to be mad. Okay? Oh, look at me. I flipped over. Anyway, I got to go. It's a tradie. Someone to fix my fridge. I love you. If you want to support me, go to my website, Patreon. Do share my stuff. Get me to be a guest on things because I like talking about stuff. I'm starting the new podcast. I'm very clear on what I want it to be. If you want to be on my podcast, I'm actually thinking of not saying who's on it and just listening to them, the person, without all the other stuff. I thought that might be interesting. Doesn't matter if you're famous or not. Okay. But the podcast doesn't say who it is. We're just two people having a conversation. I thought that might be an interesting idea. Because people aren't that different. They're not that different. I love you. Well, we're different, like in terms of personality and stuff, but really deep down, we're not. Okay, we all want the same things. I love you. Give me money. No, I'm kidding. Go to my website. I'm working on that stuff this week. Thank you for your precious life seconds. Stay sane. And if you want me to follow you back on Twitter, email me and shit because I don't see it necessarily. Okay. It's just it's just not good for my mental health to not connect with me on Facebook or whatever. And I'm actually thinking of setting up a Facebook group too, maybe. I don't know. But the members area will be there and you'll be able to sign up without giving me money. Okay. I've got to do the development and the design and shit. It's a placeholder at the moment. I love you. But the donation's working. So anyway, I love you. Thank you for your precious life seconds. There's probably a chance I'll be back tomorrow. And I'm going to start probably doing a few more frequent streams again because I've realised that I'm fucking atrophied. But I'll be back maybe tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. I may do an evening thing for the UK because I miss my UK people and my Europe people. I love you. Take care. I've already said that. See, I'm fucking distracted. Tradies coming. But anyway, I unfortunately, I think there's some stuff of substance anyway, but the Comstocking thing, I can talk about that again. This, it's recurrent themes on my, I'll come back to it at some point. This is just riffing. All right. I love you. Take care. Bye.